Testing. Okay, good evening everyone and welcome to our agenda briefing forum. This evening is not a decision-making forum, it is the briefing on the agenda for the Ordinary Council meeting which will be held next Tuesday, the 25th of June 2024. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to ensure that comments are respectful to the Council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in our public gallery. Please note this meeting is being live streamed. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. This evening there are no announcements. I'll move on to attendance. We have received apologies this evening from Councillor Maleka, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Bull and Councillor Clark. All other councillors are present in the chamber. Move on to item 5, disclosures of interest. Are there any councillors who have an interest to disclose? Councillor Eveson?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I'm just going to look over this one because my other one's packed it. But it's the. Sorry. Can you do it for me? All the way to the bottom. Sorry, keep going. It's 14.1.2. Disposal of land, lot 171411 Guildford Road, Bayswater.
Yes.
It's a proximity interest, and
Yes.
I'll leave the room for that item.
Thank you. Any other interest, councillors? If not, I'll move on to item 6, which is deputations. And this evening we have 3 in-person deputations, although I note the third person is yet to arrive. So I'll just explain how the process works. Each person who is presenting a deputation will be invited to come forward and speak at the microphone for up to 5 minutes. As we get close to 5 minutes, I'll let you know so that you can conclude your deputation. And once you have finished, councillors may have some questions for you. So our first deputation is in relation to item 10.1.3. David Dyke has requested to speak in support of the officer's recommendation. Please come forward.
David Dyke, Maylands. I'd like to take you back to the start, my motion at the AGM 2021, which is a while ago now. So starting from there, I'd like to thank you, Madam Mayor, the CEO, the governance section, all councillors, although they're not all here, staff, and the many hours spent reading and analysing. It's phenomenal. It took me a lot of time, and I can imagine you had to spend equal time too. So if you look at LAW, cats are introduced predators. They're not part of our nature, but they're a beautiful pet too. It's been an interesting pathway to work through LAW because to understand it at all is difficult. Then we went to LORE. So I'd like to thank you for allowing me to go to the pathway of talking about culture, totems, carers of everything, and the respect that everybody had in this room of different opinions. It's beautiful to see. I have to commend the officer's recommendation, and I reckon you've got the best governance team yet. It's beautiful. Any apprehension you had about reputation can be passed through to the keeper. You're leading the way, and there's many other shires are eagerly watching. They'll be watching tonight, and I'm sure they'll be watching next week. Community wants this to happen, and I commend City of Bayswater staff for organising the Catio workshop. It's an amazing initiative, and I'll keep it in here, only there's 80 registered. So if you want to go, you better register quickly. So thanks for everything. I really appreciate it. It's been a long and hard journey, only my sincere thanks and heartfelt thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Dyke.
you.
I'll just ask if councillors have any questions. If not, thank you for your deputation. So our second deputation is in relation to item 10.3.4. Robert Farina has requested to speak in support of the officer's recommendation.
My name is Robert Farina. I'd just like to say a big thank you to John Vine, Steve Ostis.
Sorry, just one moment. Councillor Ostrzowski, you have your mic on.
Sorry. Thank you. I have an impartial interest to declare on this item.
Okay.
I've known Mr. Farina for many years, and he was the one of the people that came to the AGM to present this motion. So impartial interest, staying in the room.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for interrupting. Please
That's right.
continue.
My name is Robert Farina. I did put a motion about the parking options, to reduce congestion and permanent parking when the train station eventually comes online. I'd like to say a big thank you to John Vines to come up with a parking plan. He presented 3 pictures, and option 1 is the one that's been voted most through the whole street. Everyone's in favour of the parking options, but I found certain errors on the parking. If you look at the original parking image, it's got no circles or lines where signage is being placed. So I put a deputation to amend the signage and reduce the amount of signage along our street. If you see the street where there's circles lined up, that's where I want signage to be placed. And ones with lines, I want signage removed and put a yellow line between all the signage and alleviate congestion. And that's basically it.
Thank you very much. I'll just ask if there's any councillors who have questions for you. Councillor Ostrzowski.
Thank you, Mr. Farina. A question for you. At the moment, you've got, or the residents along Elstead Way have have consensus around having permit parking on the street.
Yeah.
Would it be acceptable to the residents on that street if one side was left for open parking instead? So if one side was restricted parking of the street and the other side was opened up for parking, would that be acceptable to the residents?
Yeah, I reckon if we have you need to have one side without, because you need to have flow of traffic, obviously.
Yeah, and that
So-
was, sorry.
Yeah, and that's what you need. Have one line and then just allow people, like residents, to park along the verge so it alleviates congestion. You need people. The rubbish truck guy does his job on Thursdays. If you have people parking near the verge, how the heck is he going to get through those cars? You need to provide unrestricted for the rubbish truck guy to do his job too. Emergency services come through, you can't have too many restrictions. You need to make things a bit easier to get in and out of their driveways too.
Sure. So if one of the sides was, if one of the sides of the street you weren't allowed to park on,
Yeah.
but the other side of the street you were allowed to park on, the residents you think would be happy with that. Follow up then, if the one side of the street was just for anyone to park on and not permit parking.
No, I just want permit parking and like visitors, and now the visitors can park in each of their driveways. There's plenty of parking in driveways for their visitors to park in, and I've seen that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farina.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Farina, I just have a question for you. So you just mentioned that part of the reason is to avoid parking congestion once the train station
That's correct.
becomes operational.
Yeah.
So when are the parking issues being experienced at the moment?
It's been good so far. Now the train station, when it comes online, I know Greenwood Station has 1,600 bays, and I know from people's comments they get occupied by 9 a.m. Morley's got 450 parking bays. Bayswater Station's got 50, so there's 500 parking bays. They're going to get occupied, by 9 a.m. before they start work,
Okay, thank you.
And the reason why I made this deputation, I just want to remove the amount of signs, all the ones that have got lines in there. It's just cluttering our street. If we get one sign in each entry point, one on the corner, and a yellow line, that's my deputation, just to alleviate the amount of signage in place. One of the owners at 8 Elstead Way next to me, she said the same thing too. It's just too much signage and
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just ask any other questions, councillors? Councillor Johnson?
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. I just want to clarify. So what we're seeing here on the screen is what was in the deputation provided, and this is your amendment?
Yeah,
or-
that's why I placed a deputation. That's the amended, that picture there, as we see, that's what I included in my deputation.
Okay, thank you. I
Just,
just
you
want
know,
to clarify what
You know,
we're
that,
looking at.
that picture, that particular image had no circles or lines through it. That, you can see the signs as it is. You can see how much clutter there is along the street. And of all the lines that I just want all the signs removed and make the street a little bit more appearable, you know, and cluttering.
Well, thanks for your work on
That's
that.
basically it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for your deputation. We did have a request for a third deputation in person, but the person doesn't appear to have arrived. So, in that instance, we have also received one written deputation relating to item 10.3.5, traffic management, Robert Street, Bayswater. This has been provided to councillors and it is available on the city's website, and I will take that as read. So we'll now move on to questions on agenda reports, and we haven't received any notice from councillors for any questions on any items, so I'll just go around the room and ask. Councillor Sosowski?
Thank you. My question is on 10.3.4 Elstead Way parking options. In the council recommendation here, it says LIM 3 requests the Chief Executive Officer to continue to explore opportunities to explore the Watercorp land next to us. I think it is to be used for parking. What conversations have been had with the Water Corporation, or what conversations have been had with the relevant department in regards to perhaps using that land for parking?
Thank you. I'll go
Conversations have been
the
had.
director to respond.
Through the chair, I believe city officers approached Water Corporation and just basically asked whether that land would be made available to be able to park on there. It's obviously gated at the moment, so they're basically seeking whether there'll be opportunity to have temporary parking on there, not full time, but it gets opened up and when there's a need for it. I believe Water Corporation refused.
Any other questions on this one? Anyone else have questions on this, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Two questions, please. First of all, following the deputation that we just had, is the city aware of what is being requested with regards to the signage? I'm trying to understand what needs to be changed in the officers' accommodation to meet what we just had in the deputation.
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, I understand that the deputation is seeking to remove some of the signs, stating that there's probably too many signs there and it's creating some clutter along the street. But it must be also understood that those signs have been placed in accordance with standards. So in terms of the parking being able to work as a permit parking area, the signs need to be placed in accordance with standards to be able to, for the city to be able to enforce the parking in that area.
So in other words, the city is not recommending making any changes to the signage?
Through the chair, that's correct. Okay. It could be reviewed, I suppose, in terms of whether it could be done differently, but I believe the designs are done in accordance with the standards.
Thank you. Can I also clarify the recommendation to have a permit system for the residents? Is this, as we heard from the deputy, in light of the concerns of what will happen once we have the Morley train station? Is this the main reason why the city is recommending going ahead with this?
Through the chair, officers were acting on the direction from council. So at the AGM was raised that there's parking issues there. We understood it as being that some of the parking issues already exist. So when there's a sports day there, there's quite a few cars parking in the area. So we understood that the problem's actually existing at the moment. In terms of whether there's a parking issue created by the train station, we don't know until the train station's open. So, so we basically, as officers, we've acted on what was the direction from council that came from that AGM.
Thank you. And just another question. So as we heard from a resident, the issue for residents apparently is a concern from the future Morley station. And what I'm trying to understand if we should expect having more permits requested for other areas around the Morley station coming in the next few years. Is this something that the city has taken into account? Because obviously, if that is the consent will happen all in that catchment.
Well, through the chair, in terms of the train station, I mean, there's parking accommodated already at the train station as part of the design. So it's basically got some capacity there. In terms of whether there's a need for any overflow parking or further parking, we don't know at this stage. I mean, the parking has been designed and sized according to what's expected from the train station in accordance with the modelling that they've done with that train station. So in terms of any further parking that's required, we won't know until the station's built and open and operating, and then we'll be basically monitoring the situation in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sazowski?
Thank you. I have another question in regards to our parking strategy. When's our parking strategy up for review?
Thank you. I'll go to the director.
Thank you, through the Mayor. I'm unclear if it's up for review. However, it is something that will be considered after we consider our local planning scheme, because it will form part of that consideration. So first we're going through the local planning scheme, which is this financial year through to the next, and thereafter we'll be considering a parking strategy alongside like a public open space strategy, etc., which supports your scheme.
Thank you. The local planning strategy that you were speaking of, is that the one that's just been endorsed by council and sent off? Is that the one that's we've just approved recently, the local planning strategy?
Through the Mayor, the local planning scheme. So the strategy has just been sent to the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage for consideration by the WAPC. But on the back of that, you now need to go through the process of creating a new local planning scheme.
Okay.
So as part of that process, and once that's coming to the conclusion of that, then we start considering what strategies are required in addition to it to support the local planning scheme.
Okay, and we expect for that work to happen over the next year. Is that correct?
For the local planning scheme, yes.
Correct. And then after that, we will then look at parking strategies, public open space strategy, etc., etc.
Correct. It might not be in the preceding year, but that'll be something for council to consider.
Okay, thank you. Ta.
Councillor Palmer, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's to do with 10.3.5, the Robert Street.
We're still on Elstead.
Oh.
Yeah. Are there any other questions on Elstead? I have some questions. So to the director, just missing, there's some information missing for me in the report. So under background, it talks about complaints and reports of hazardous parking. So have we validated that information?
I probably don't have that answer with me now, but I can find out and see what complaints we've had, and I can provide that before the council meeting.
In terms of validating if it's actually hazardous and the number, and because I can't tell from here when we're talking about hazardous parking, and you said the majority of parked vehicles appears to be associated with people accessing the reserve for sport and recreation. So do we know how many people are using it, how often, the days and the times? Because this report isn't telling me that this there's a problem. When there's the problem, how frequently is a problem? So I don't know what we're actually addressing at this stage. Also, my next question, it's still in the information on the background. It says that vehicles may park, or several formal parking bays, approximately 14, are provided on Walter Road West within close proximity to the reserve. Can you tell me, is that shown on any of these maps in the attachments? Where those parking bays are? Because I couldn't see them on the map.
So they're not specifically shown on the plans that are in here, but we can provide a further plan.
Yeah,
showing
I'd
those
like to see.
locations.
where those 14 are. So other than approximately 14 parking bays somewhere on Walter Road West, the entire number of parking bays that service this reserve is only 8. Is that correct?
That's correct.
For the entire reserve?
Yep.
Okay.
The sealed car park we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. My next question is, would this set a precedent for parking around all of our reserves in the city?
Potentially it can.
Okay. That's Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a few more questions.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just reflected on what the director responded to my question, that the city worked on what council instructed to do. This is what I heard. But if you can see in the report, director, the council did not instruct to go ahead with the permit system. What we requested on the basis of the AGM with electors is to investigate the best parking options. So what I'm trying to clarify, if the city is recommending the permit system, is this is the best approach to take in this situation? Because this is city's recommendation, not council's recommendation.
I'll go the director.
Yeah, through the chair, the permit parking is not the only thing that's shown on those plans. What we've also provided on those plans is there's some additional parking that's proposed. So you'll see there's some 90-degree parking and included along the street. And there's some extra bays around where the sealed car park is. When we talk about those 8 bays, there's also additional parking that's proposed to be constructed there. So it's just taken some opportunities to add some additional bays. The amount of space that's available is limited, so there's not a lot of bays that can be put in. Well, I'm talking about bays, I'm talking about the extra bays. And the other option was that we spoke to the Water Corporation to see if we can have access to their land, which they refused.
So just a follow-up question. So that despite of that refusal, the city is still recommending going ahead with the permit system?
Through the chair, well, the permit system isn't linked to the Water Corporation. The Water Corporation is a different piece of land. Yeah. That was just another option to see whether we can provide further parking in the area. So if we had Water Corporation ability to go on the Water Corporation land, they'll provide additional bays, and then maybe potentially the permit system could have been looked at slightly differently.
I understand, but now knowing, and it's not in the report, now knowing that we cannot get that land, does that have any impact on the officer's accommodation? Because that directly, it's all new information, it's not in the report. Maybe the city should actually provide supplementary information on the record if there is new information about the refusal. But it's not here.
It is.
Through the chair, I believe it's stated in the report that it was refused. And,
oh, sorry. Can you direct me? Sorry, I thought we were going to ask.
Towards the end of the officer comments.
It's on page, it starts on page 405 at the beginning and goes over to page 406. So it says the Water Corporation has not agreed to providing any access to the land.
Okay, apologies. Has the city consulted any of the groups or clubs that are using the reserve?
Through the chair, we have a liaison officer, so I believe they've been in contact with the clubs. They have regular contact with the various clubs to talk about any issues they may have.
Can we better understand which clubs and groups are currently using the reserve, and what were their responses? Were they happy?
Listen, I can provide that information before the council meeting.
Thank you. Just the last question. Can the director please remind me through the chair whether we have other areas in the city with parking permits for residents?
Through the chair, I believe there's other areas. Which ones, I don't have that detail on me, but I can provide some further information.
It will be useful. Thank you.
I've just got a few other questions. Just in terms of the homes that are located on Elstead, most of them have driveways and garages?
That's correct.
So there's ample parking for residents on their property?
They have parking in their driveways and potentially on their properties, yes.
Okay. Also, is there a difference between resident permits and visitor permits?
I don't believe so.
Same thing?
Yep.
And so how many permits get issued? Like it just says here that approves resident permanent parking. Doesn't say how many permits each household would receive. That I can see if it's in there.
Through to the Mayor, issuing of parking permits and visitor parking permits would fall within ranges and security, and I'll take that on notice and come back to you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this? No, thank you very much. We'll now move on. Councillor Palmer, you said it was 10.3.5?
Thank you, yes.
Yep.
Just wondering, all the traffic preparation on the LCURS seems to be towards Garrett Road, Guildford Road. Is there anything happening further up on the Watley Crescent side of Robert Street?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, the working group that was formed looked at the entire street, and this is the recommendations that have come out of that working group.
Thank you. So there's actually no construction happening at that far end. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions from councillors on this item? Councillor
So
Johnson?
On this item, are we now talking about Robert Street? My
Yes.
apologies. Sorry. I just want to check. So in the deputation, it talked about temporary measures. Is that something that, expediting the process a little bit? Is there my question, I guess, is there some temporary measures that we could put in place earlier than the proposed works?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, the only temporary measures we could possibly put in is to go and put some sandbags and that type of treatment in there. That would be very temporary in nature. It's something that probably needs to go back and be repaired a fair bit. The actual works, we tried to get it through the LCURS program, but it's not funded through that program because that area's already been funded previously. And it needs to go through the budget process in the forward plans, basically, to get it onto the budget in the future.
Any other questions on this item? Councillor Eveson?
Yeah, just one. So looking to cut Robert Street off from that Guildford Road end, has there been any modelling or work done on what impacts it's going to have for the local school, which is just off screen to the left of that image?
Go to the director.
Like where are they? I guess the question is, where's the traffic going to go to access the school otherwise? Because that's how they come through now.
Through the chair, the work has been done through the working group and through the officers that have been involved, and there was concerns whether the balancing of the traffic in the area might have an impact, but that's been looked at, and I believe it should be okay.
So can I just ask a follow-up question to that? On the working group, were there any representatives from the school? Anyone, either P&C members or parents or...
I'm not entirely sure. What I can do is get hold of those names and provide them to councillors.
I don't necessarily need the names, I just need to know whether there's someone from P&C or board or school parent that was on that working group.
Yeah, I can basically provide a breakdown of where the people are from.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this item? No. Are there any questions on any other items, councillors? Councillor Johnson?
Thanks. Just a really broad question about the budget item 10.1.1. So at our last, I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me. The second book that we got with all the service plans and budgets in it, I can't remember the date, I think it was in March sometime. Just wondering if there's any changes to what's in front of us since then in terms of those plans that need to be amended.
Thank you. I'll go to the Manager of Governance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The latest service plans were provided to the council at the May workshop, and the corporate business plan has been built off those service plans. I don't believe that there were any changes that came out of that May workshop, but I will go and I will double check that and confirm that for councillors.
Thank you. If I might, just to clarify, because the formatting is obviously so different, that I want to understand if I pick up that and look at it, that's what I'm seeing in the budget as well.
Through the chair, yes, understandable, and we'll confirm that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? No? Any questions on any other items? Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is a supplementary, or rather an addendum to go on to my notice of motion, which is 11.1, and that's the amendment. So I'm just asking that that will be put online, the amendment?
I'll just go to the Manager of Governance.
Yeah,
Through the chair, yes, that should already be available on our website and has
Lovely.
been provided to all elected members through Docs on Tap.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson?
I do have a question about something's in the confidential, sorry.
Okay, that's not a problem. I'll just, before we go to that and close the doors, I'll just ask if there's any questions on any other items. If not, we'll need to go behind closed doors for that question, and I'll have to ask members of the gallery to please leave. Oh, wait, sorry. Before we do that, And we'll open the doors. Okay, so any other questions on any other items? If there's nothing else, then I will close the agenda briefing forum at 7:37 p.m. Thank you, councillors.